Right, 7 o'clock.
Yep. Okay, let's get started. All right, good evening. Today is Monday, December 6, 2021, and the meeting of the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee is meeting at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, as well as Zoom teleconference. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. I will ask our clerk to take roll.
Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderman Clemens.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Kelly is here. Alderman Cleaver. You have 3 committee members present.
Okay, thank you. Members not in attendance, Alderman Cleaver and Alderman Lopez, who said he may be a few minutes late. Also in attendance is President Laurie Wilshire.
And Alderman Dowd and Alderman Clee.
And, oh yes, Alderman Dowd and Alderman Clee by Zoom. Thank you. Okay, so first we will take any public comment concerning anything that is taking place at tonight's meeting. If you would like to speak, please come to the podium, give your name and address. No one, okay. And no one on Zoom. All right, we will move on. So this evening, we have a presentation concerning the redrawing of ward boundaries relative to ordinance 0-21-081. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, do you want me to make the motion before
Yes,
the presentation? Okay. So we are moving to amend 021-081 by replacing it with the red line copy placed on the desk this evening.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Lovering, would you like to come up with all your people and introduce us and give us a quick presentation of what's happening?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please state your name when you're speaking for the transcriber. Thank you. You have the floor, Ms. Lovering.
Thank you. I just wanted to share a screen. Thank you very much, Chairman Karen. For the record, my name is Sue Levering. I am the city clerk, and joining me this evening to my left is Julie Chismas. She's the transportation analysis and the long-range planner for the city. Julie was very instrumental in redrawing of these ward boundary lines, uploading the census data into the Excel and GIS, and creating the maps here on your desk this evening, as well as the interactive map, which is available on the website and we will be sharing with you shortly. And also joining us is Representative Paul Bergeron, who many, if not all of you know. He served as the city clerk in Nashua for many, many years. And during his tenure as city clerk, Paul redrew the ward boundaries in 2010, and I believe in 2000 as well. So a lot of institutional knowledge that he is here to share with you tonight on the redrawing of the city's ward boundaries, and also here to speak to you of the efforts up at the State House currently, as he sits on the Election Laws Committee at the state level. He's also a member of the House Redistricting Committee, where he, along with Representative Connie Lane out of Concord, were appointed as the committee's liaisons to the cities throughout the state of New Hampshire in their redistricting. So with that, I would like to just begin providing a brief overview of our redistricting process, and then go into that interactive map and answer any questions that you may have. So read the couple of slides here just to let you know that Federal and state law, along with the city charter, require that the legislative districts and the wards be revised following a 10-year census so that the populations in each of the city's wards is as equal as circumstances will admit, or as equal as practicable. And the city charter directs that the Board of Aldermen is to equalize these populations to comply with that constitutional requirements. Now, redistricting criteria is intended to make the drawing of the ward lines easy to identify and understand, and to ensure fairness and consistency. A redistricting plan where overall statewide deviation is less than or equal to 10%. That is the difference between the district with the lowest negative deviation and the district having the highest positive deviation is presumed to be constitutional under the federal constitutional one person, one vote requirement. We also look at boundaries. New Hampshire RSA 44 provides that all boundaries shall follow easily identifiable physical features such as public and private ways, utility lines, railroad tracks, and surface waters. And the ward lines shall be clearly depicted on the ward map. Our charter also provides for this and states that all wards shall be composed of contiguous and compact territory as nearly equal in population as possible and bounded by natural boundaries such as mentioned in the state statute. So this is what the census data showed us. Nashua, like many other cities such as Manchester, chose to wait for the more user-friendly data to be released in late September before redrawing its boundaries. That data shows Nashua's population increased 5.58% over the past 10 years. In 2010, Nashua's population, you'll see, was 86,494. It has increased by 4,828 for a total population of 91,322, and that averages out to 10,147 residents per ward. As mentioned earlier, once this user-friendly data was released, Ms. Chisness uploaded it into Excel into GIS. She then created an overlay of the census tracking with the existing ward boundaries, and that determined the unadjusted population for each of our 9 wards. So we had to determine the range of deviation by looking at the ideal population of the ward lines and the ideal population for the state representative districts. So for the 10,147 residents per ward, the 10% range of deviation would fall between 9,640 and 10,654 residents. We then looked for the House of Representatives range of deviation. The ideal population for a state representative seat is 3,444, and it is anticipated that the city of Nashua, based on its population, will retain its 27 seats in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, and that is 3 seats per ward. So our 3-member House district, you'll see, is 10,322. So the 10% range of deviation for that falls between 9,815 to 10,838 residents. So we know that the ward population falls within the range of deviation for the 3-member state rep district that I just mentioned, and it cannot exceed the plus 5% population deviation permitted for the Nashua ward lines. And so the range of deviation was determined to be between 9,815 to 10,654 residents per ward. So realizing the range of deviation was 9,815 to 10,664, and that we needed to adjust our ward boundaries following the census tracts using the easily identifiable physical features, and also taking into consideration that we wanted to minimize the number of residents who would polling locations would change, we began a very long task. And you will see on this slide the adjusted population by ward that we completed after our exercise. It'll show you that Each of the ward populations fall within the range of the deviation that we mentioned. And it takes into all of the criteria that we needed to take into, and we minimized is the moving as many voters as possible to the polling locations, smooth lines where we could, and with that, you'll see that everything is in line. The metes and bounds are described in the proposed ordinances and are depicted in the map before you. That is a very brief overview of a very long process that we did. I'd like to thank Julie for all of her work. I'm going to turn it over to her. She's going to show you an interactive map that she did and talk about any areas that you would like to discuss. I will get oh, okay, that's fine. All right. And you see that she's okay. All right. And can you get me into?
The mice don't like these counters.
So we'll bring up that interactive map.
Whoa, so close.
Can you get there?
It shouldn't be that hard, I apologize.
Is it, yeah, there.
Oh, no. Now we have to, so sorry, we have to switch our screen share. All right, so here's an interactive map that there is a link on the city website. You can also get to it using a bit.ly/Nashua wards, capital N on Nashua, capital W on wards. When you first launch it, you'll be taken to a little splash screen that kind of explains how to use the map. Oh, you're gonna have a problem with this mouse. All right, and then as you come into the map, it'll start with a legend open. You can scroll in.
Switch.
You can switch sheets.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Not a problem.
I've been using a touch screen on this and it works much better. So you can scroll into the map. This is pretty similar to a lot of online maps that you'll see. You can turn different layers on and off. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I really should have had a mouse pad for this. All right.
I'll use my code enforcement book.
No, I think we got it. We got it. All right. So the legend is the first icon on the left. The next one over is layers, and you can turn on different layers to see what you think of what you're interested in. I have one layer that's yellow. You can see these highlights, and that just hones in, really just takes you right to where the changes are between the wards. So, for example, this highlighted yellow block here, if you click on it, it will show you that this is proposed for Ward 1. It used to be Ward 2, and the population is 19 in this particular block. There's a little arrow on the pop-up, and you can scroll through, and it'll show you different layers, information about each layer that's turned on. So in this proposed ward boundary, it is proposed Ward 1, and it shows you that the census population, 2020 census population in this adjusted boundary is 10,119. Likewise, you click again, it'll show you that it was in Ward 2, and the census population in Ward 2, 2020 unadjusted was 9,380. And what else do we got? And it shows you the amount of change. So existing Ward 2 had 461 people moved into Ward 1. And I just want to make sure I said that right. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Yes, from 2 into 1. So existing Ward 2 went into 1, 461. Whoop, that zooms fast, huh? So the other layers that you can turn on and off, if you don't want to see just what the highlights are and you just want to see what the proposed boundaries are, you can turn off those layers, and now you're seeing just the boundaries, the proposed. They are labeled at the, as you zoom out with the total population, but as you zoom in, you'll start to see the individual block populations turned on. You can click on those blocks, and again, you will see information about each one, the block number, the census tract number, the population, census 2020 population, what the proposed ward is, and what the existing ward is. I apologize, the Zoom is a little bit crazy on me. Other information, there are parcel boundaries on here if you wanted to look up a specific address, and then also the tract boundaries. And again, you can turn on and off these features, just like most maps or most online systems. You can also change the base map if you want to see imagery underneath. You can do that, and now you're seeing the aerials. And these are the map system aerials. These are not specific NATUS flights. Going back to the street map, you can also change whichever street map you want on that. A couple of different options out there. You can share a link. I'll give you a little tiny URL, and you can print the maps. So I'm turn back on the proposed. And that, in a nutshell, is how the interactive map works. If anybody does have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them either in this forum or afterwards, or you can always email me or give me a call. And I should have said at the beginning, I'm sorry, my name is Julie Chismus. As City Clerk Levering introduced me, I am the Transportation Analyst and Long Range Planner in Community Development Division.
Thank you.
And I think I forgot to mention during the presentation that 3 wards were the, Ward 8 had, I think, and I don't have the number in front of me, but over 563, over 500, I don't know if we have those numbers, but 563 or 500 and something. If we go back to one of the slides, I don't know if we can back there, that had to move out. And then we had an awful lot of population that need to go into Ward 1 and Ward 2. And so it was a pretty long process to be able to follow along the census tracking, the borders, come in within the range and try to minimize, sometimes it got very choppy and other times it didn't. And this came out and brought everybody in within the range of deviation.
Yeah, I think what City Clerk Levering's speaking to is that we started out with 11,237 residents in Ward 8, and our upper limit was 10,654. That just kind of shows you how high we were to begin with. Likewise, we were at 9,380 beginning in Ward 2, and that was about 500 lower than our minimum target, which was 9,815. And I believe Ms. Bergeron noted that if this is similar to squeezing a balloon, you squeeze on one end to shrink the population on one side, it pops out on the other. So even though, some wards technically had the population that fit within that target range, once you start moving to make adjustments to the other ones, so it all works as a whole, you have to start making adjustments all around. And I also want to note, not that anybody asked, but we do all this at the block level of census geography, and blocks can be very, very small, or they can be very, very large. You can have a sliver that has, maybe 10 people in it, or you can have a whole area, a larger area with over 1,000 people in a block. So they aren't consistent. The block geography is not consistent in size or in population threshold. Are there any questions?
Okay, Alderman Wilshire. I have a question about how people are notified once this is done and over. How do people get notified that they've got to vote at another polling place?
So the city clerk's office, I believe Paul can give the history on that. We will work with the GIS data and in through the state database. And we have to go into the state database and change that ward, populate a letter, and mail everybody and give them notification.
Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. They don't have to re-register to vote, correct?
No, they do not.
Okay.
Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you. It seems like it's a long process. You guys did a lot of work, so I appreciate that. My question was, is there any extent, I know you were talking about the balloon scenario, is there any extent in which you looked at active development projects that might be coming on, or you're not allowed to do that at all?
Not allowed.
So we might be 1,000 short, and we have units that are proposed, but we can't even, okay.
No, that's not.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Being an alderman at large, I don't really have, a particular interest in any one ward or as opposed to another. And my home ward wasn't touched very much, so that's fine with me. But I was curious why Ward 3 and 2 changed as much as they did. So I don't know if you could go over the maps to kind of figure out, because there's some odd lines in those wards between 3, 2, and 4. And I'm kind of curious as to why they had to be so drastic.
Sue, who wants to answer that?
Well, I would say, the first thing is as we're moving from Ward 8, which we started in, you're going to see deviation. And we're mindful that Ward 2 had a lot of population that had to be moved in. We had a lot, and I would have, and I don't have the slides or the numbers in front of me. But it had 9,380, and at the low point, it's 9,815. So we had to find 500.
Okay.
And as we started in Ward 8, not only because they had over 580 or whatever that number is to move out, but it is the most challenging boundary-wise. There's not a lot of cross-section, northeast, north, south, east, west roads. A lot of cul-de-sacs. It was our most difficult, challenging ward, so we began down there and moved it up. And as Julie mentioned, you start moving with blocks. We would love to have nice, smooth lines throughout. I would love to be able to just divide it by 9 and have 10,147 and have nice, smooth, and when we got up to that point, we had to take from 3 and go into 2 to make that population. We looked at a lot of different scenarios, and this was, there was one scenario that I think had, there was apartments on, was it Factory Street? There was apartments on, I can't remember those apartments, that it was, if we run it down that track, do we then take an apartment building on one side and put it in one ward and the other on the other? It didn't make sense. Do we take a block that's right across from a polling location and instead of them walking next door, go over? All of those things were taken into consideration. And then we had the challenge of the size of the blocks. And so we moved and smoothed and wiggled and jiggled as best we could to get everybody in where they were. Many, many hours. We took a lot of things into consideration, and sometimes it just falls that way. And Ward 2 needed to pick up a lot of population this time around.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? So I have a question. I show that you're going to have meetings in each ward. How are you getting that information out there to get the public to participate? And quick question to Representative Bergeron. Did you do this before, have meetings? And if so, did you have a lot of input from the general public?
I found 2 years ago, and actually Alderman Clemmons was the sponsor of the bill that took this out of the city charter and turned it into an ordinance and required the informational sessions in all 9 wards. I found most of the time that people came to the presentations were interested in how it affected them. And they were curious about the process. And I've attended all 3 sessions that the city clerk has held so far, and that trend seems to be continuing this time around. People want to know how how decisions were made, what the criteria were, and bottom line, how does it affect them?
Okay, good. So how are you getting
So
that?
we have that posted here, we have it on the interactive map on our website. And we contacted all the schools, and we're noticing as best as we can and trying to get that word out.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm sorry, we don't take questions from the audience. Do we have any other questions from, Alderwoman Clegg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. City Clerk Lovering, I do not envy the position that you were put in. The first thing I have to admit when I saw this was the big chunk up towards the top of Ward 3 that went over to Ward 2, and it looks like there's been about 1,000. But I do see, and I just want to make sure that I am reading this interactive map correctly. There are 2 parcels towards the lower end of Ward 3 where there's some that had been in Ward 4 that are now part of Ward 3, and some from Ward 7 that are in Ward 3. Am I reading that correctly? I know I'm putting you on the spot, I
No,
apologize.
I'm gonna have Ms. Chisholm put that map up, and then that's what the interactive map is wonderful about, and does, it'll zoom right in on those blocks for you.
That's what I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly.
Alderman Cleve, where are you looking?
I was looking at the lower portion of Ward 3. If you bring up the proposed boundary changes in the layering, I'm sorry. Yeah. So you can see down, see if I have this right here.
There.
That's one of the areas right there. So that means those were currently Ward 7 constituents or citizens that will be moved to Ward 3. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you are.
And that there are 410 that would go over there.
Yes,
And then
sir.
just kind of all straight across to the opposite side. I'm pointing to my screen like you can see it. All the way over towards the left-hand side of that ward. And that one is Ward 4, where Ward 4 going into Ward 3.
Correct.
Okay. And thank you very much. I really appreciate you answering that question. And yeah, I do not envy the position that you all were in. Thank you so much for the job you've done.
Anyone, Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. Yeah, I can remember going through this exercise with Mr. Bergeron 10 years ago. And it was funny because I remember us having a conversation and me saying, well, we're going to see that population in Nashville move south. And that sure did happen. And but the other thing is that between 1990 and 2010, the city didn't really grow. So you didn't have to do these drastic changes to the boundaries. You know, you had some growth in other areas, and then other areas went, they tore stuff down or whatever, but the city itself didn't grow. So, when we're looking at these changes here, that's what happens when a city grows. And I think that, again, like Alderman Clee said, I don't envy your position, but I appreciate the fact that in Nashua, yeah, we're here at the Board of Aldermen, we have to approve these, but we don't get in on the ins and outs of it. It's a non-political process, and I think that really serves our citizens best. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I have no problem with these boundaries. It's a tough job, and I just appreciate you all going through it.
Thank you. Looks like Alderman Dow, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I just have a question. The Ward 2 meeting is tomorrow at 4:30, and I have to chair a meeting at 7. How long are these meetings lasting in the wards?
They're typically running just about an hour, Alderman Dowd. We did see one ward that went a little longer. We've seen some, shorter, depending on how many people, but we stay for at least, about an hour. That's how long
Okay,
they run.
the other question I have is,
But
go ahead.
I was just going to say, but I just would like to take the opportunity to let everyone know that they don't have to go to the ward in which they're registered to vote to these sessions. The purpose of having some during the day and some at night is to allow people to walk into any ward location that meets their convenient time for them. And we have all the wards available for them. The citywide map and Ms. Chisness is there with the interactive map and can answer any question on any ward.
Okay, that answered my second question.
Oh.
I'm assuming that it's only practical that the ward alderman for where that meeting's being held would be there, so.
All done, Alderman Dowd?
All done.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you. Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. I remembered this from last time. One of the issues we came up with last time was we forgot to consider where current state reps and aldermen and other elected officials live. Did we take that into account this time, or was there any changes that we're aware of?
Not aware of any, we did not take that into account. After this was finalized, we asked the state rep to send us down where the state reps are. I don't know if you did that overlay. I sent her the newly elected. I don't know if she has it, she can show it to you. I did not look at it.
Yep, I do have it. We didn't look at it when we were doing this exercise, but I do have that data and can add it as an overlay to confirm. We just wanted to make sure that everything was adjusted.
If you can do that, because the one thing that we don't want to do is to take a representative out of their current district. And with the way that, I'm sure you probably would have heard from a representative had that happened, because we certainly did 10 years ago. But, just to be sure, because if there's a minor change here or there that we can, adjust the street here or there, just to keep the representative in their current ward, I think that's an important thing to do. So if you could plot those and just let me know, yes, it's good, everybody's where they should be, or whatever, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alderman Lopez?
Would you also be able to check with the clerks and selectmen for each ward? Because some of them may lose
Yes.
each other.
We're happy to do that, but to Alderman Clemens' point, I think that is something that at the full board, you would make a motion to adjust those lines. We don't take that into consideration, but we're happy to provide that for you before the vote. I thank you for making the amendment tonight so that it can get to the full board and amended and tabled there pending the public hearing, which is December 28th. If I can just make a plug on that, December 28th at 7 p.m. More opportunity we have to reach the public, the better.
Okay. Alderman Cleave?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. When does this, to City Clerk Lovering, when does this take effect? Once we vote on it, does it happen automatically, or is it just at the next election, or when do the lines actually change?
I think upon passage, but is it on the, so upon passage, I believe.
Okay. It was probably.
I'd have to check the ordinance, but I believe, Paul, do you recall?
I don't recall, no.
I'm sure it's on the legislation. I'll find it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else? Do we have any other questions for either city clerk or state rep, Mr. Bergeron, concerning how this redistricting takes place here and throughout the state? Anyone? Okay. Okay, so the motion was to amend 0-21-081 by replacing it with the red line copy that was placed on your desk this evening. So we can do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All against? Okay. Motion passes. Okay. So Alderman Kelly, you have another motion?
I would move to recommend final passage of O28-081 as amended by roll call.
Okay, so you heard the motion to recommend final passage for O-21-081. Do we have any questions, comments? Alderwoman Kelly.
Just wanted to make the comment that this is procedural to get it to the board so we can open up the public hearing.
Right.
So if there's any feedback from any of the board meetings or before that, we could still amend it at the full board.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And also, as Alderman Clemmons asked for, to make sure that no selectmen or state reps or aldermen are out of their ward boundaries, and then we can make those adjustments at the full board as well. Okay, so we all understand that. Okay. So, all those in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We appreciate all the hard work you've done.
You have a communication regarding redistricting that I don't have any knowledge on, so that's why I was excusing myself. I don't know if Representative Bergeron is a local group, or it's a political group not associated with the city or the state. I don't have any knowledge. I don't believe Representative Bergeron has any, but
I don't,
excuse myself too early, but I don't have anything to share.
I don't have any, I don't have a
It's
copy.
the map-a-thon thing. It's the next in communication. It's in the packet.
Oh, it's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually what we're supposed to accept next. Or,
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. If you want to wait, that's fine. Yeah, I see it. Okay, Madam Clerk?
so we have communication from a lot of people. David Andrews, Mapathon Citizen Mapping Project, Brian Beal, Deputy Director, Organizer, Mapathon Coalition, regarding proposed national ward lines to allow for two New Hampshire Senate districts.
Okay, you heard the communication. There being no objection, I will accept the communication and place it on file. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we're getting into the interviews. We have 6 new appointments. Okay, so is Margaret Lauret on Zoom? Margaret?
Yes, I'm here. I muted myself, sorry.
Okay, Margaret, you are going to speak on the Cultural Connection Committee, new member, Wee Lin?
Yes.
6 Cameron Drive. Okay, would you please introduce her, please? She's on Zoom too?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Please give your
Okay.
name.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Margaret Lauret. I'm the new chair of the Cultural Connections Committee. And it's my pleasure to introduce and recommend Wei Lin for the Cultural Connections Committee. Wei was born and raised and educated in Beijing and also in the US at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, where she received her master's degree in computer science. And after graduation, she came to Nashua to raise her family, and she's been there for over 20 years. So she's a converted Nashuan right now. Wei Lin is not a stranger to the Cultural Connections Committee. She participated in the last year festivities, and she is active in Nashua community, Chinese community, as well as regional. She's a member of New England Chinese Information and Networking Association. She is a member teaching at Chelmsford School of Chinese. She is currently president of the Chinese Cultural Society of Greater Nashua. She is a PTA advisor. And last but not least, she's very active in the Nashua Dog Park activities. The way is the first, I believe, Chinese resident who joined the Cultural Connections Committee, and she would be a wonderful asset to the committee and a great link between the city of Nashua and the Chinese resident in Nashua. So thank you very much, and I hope you all vote for Wei.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lynn, would you like to speak? And then we'll have committee members ask you questions. Thank you.
You can ask me questions. I didn't prepare a speech.
Well, why don't you tell us why you would like to join the Cultural Connection Committee?
I just recently know about this, and as I became the president of the Chinese Culture Society of Greater Nashua, and about 2 years ago, and we started the organization started like I think like over 30 years, and it started as a grassroots neighborhood community where Chinese people gather and communicate, socializing, and also we welcome the people who are interested in Chinese culture. And as I become the president, and also because of the COVID, so we started to get more involved in the community. And we have, I think we have several hundred Chinese residents in Nashua, and there's more Chinese family in local area. We, as the only Chinese organization in the whole state, so we feel like we need to do more outreach program and be more involved in the community building. So, and also in the last couple of years, because of all the hate crime against the Asian population, so we also feel like we need to bridge open the communications channel with the city, and also see what we can do. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Alderman Lopez, and just to remind everyone, Alderman Lopez came in at 7:05 this evening. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank Wei Lin for putting herself up for nomination and for working with the mayor to come forward with this. I think it's particularly important that we, as a city, recognize the cultural diversity that we have within our city. And the Cultural Connections Committee's purpose is to act as a bridge to make sure that residents living in our city feel like they're able to access our government, and likewise, our government is able to find out what's going on in those communities, if there's things that we need to address to support equity, and topics like that. So I just wanted to express appreciation for your being willing to connect with an important cultural group to our larger cultural group in Nashua. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor for me.
Anyone else? Alderman Clee? Alderman Clee?
I'm sorry, my hand was raised. I didn't put it back down.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? Okay. With Ms. Lynn, we're happy that you're willing to join this committee. This committee has grown over the years. I remember when it first started, it was a small group, and I think the committee has made a big impact for its citizens throughout the city. So thank you. We will take up your nomination later on, and you'll be notified as to when you'll be sworn in. Thank you. And thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is for the Citizens Advisory Commission, Oscar Valessas, and you may come forward and sit. President Wilshire is going to do the intros. Yeah, sit right there. Or sit next to her?
Anywhere you want.
You can sit wherever you like. There's
Well, we are-
safety in numbers.
We are friends, so.
We're safety in numbers. You have the floor, Alderman Wilson. Thank you. I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing Oscar Valessas. I've known Oscar for a long time. He is a dynamic individual. You know when he comes into a room that Oscar is there. He's a dynamic individual. I just have to read the summary that's written about Oscar that he presented because it really speaks volumes. Oscar Valessas is a professional radio personality who took a negative situation and turned it into a positive outcome. As a first-generation American and a Latino, Oscar is passionate about breaking expectations and guiding young entrepreneurs around typical mistakes that he has made in his own personal endeavors. By sharing his platform, Oscar is opening the door for young professionals who look like him to be able to access valuable resources for underserved communities. Oscar shines a light on individuals who are often on a swinging pendulum between the countries of culture or cultures they have left behind and the country that they are trying to adapt to that doesn't always fully accept them. With the company he co-owns, Oscar and his team have been able to see several individuals become inspired, start in their own personal endeavors, and achieve their American dreams. I mean, that's just who Oscar is. So, it's well said. I couldn't say it any better myself. Oscar Valessas. Okay. Oscar, would you please give us a little insight as to why you would like to join the Citizens Advisory Commission?
Well, I would like to join. First off, thank you very much for having me tonight, and I appreciate each and every one of you, especially in these times that we're in right now. I would like to join because I bring a perspective. As a young professional in the community, I definitely have seen my struggles in trying to start a nonprofit organization while also, connecting with other individuals in the community while they have their nonprofit organizations. A good friend of mine, Manny Ramirez from Positive Shootout, I can remember starting together and motivating, but I didn't have the outlets or the resources. I would like to shine some light and I don't come as a teacher, but as a student, and also to shine some perspective as well, to see what really makes it work and then replicate it. That's all. I've like the Bible says, I've made some mistakes in my life, professionally, and that have made me grow and keep going forward. So I would like to reach out to my community and tell them that there's individuals that look like them that are succeeding and they're a part of. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, questions from the committee? Alderman Lopez.
So when a radio show invites the mayor's office to speak on that radio show and cannot find a translator, are you going to translate for the mayor?
We actually found a translator.
Okay. So you're already solving the problems that were identified.
So, thank you for bringing that up. When the city couldn't find this, I see opportunities within the city. That's why I know that I wasn't allowed to speak. But I was excited about moments like this and what they were developing to actually show individuals within our community what is actually, how it affects their actual ward. And I just want to make sure that it's in Spanish. There's a tab in Spanish and in Portuguese. So there's still opportunities that I would like to shed some light to and also be educated so that in my platform, I'm able to go back into my community and say, hey, this is what the city is doing for us and they're doing an amazing job, or this is the missed opportunities. That young lady that actually translated for us, she started her own business translating because she saw an opportunity. So we're inspiring and we're connecting every single day.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else? No one? Well, I will tell you this. The Citizens Advisory Committee is a group of citizens within the community who are dedicated to taking the funds that they're allocated to give out to the nonprofits to better the programs that are here. And you're looking at small nonprofit organizations, and they work very well. when they made the changes 3 years ago to do this in a different way, they were amazed, because I have sat on that committee for almost 15 years. They were all in sync as far as who should get what and how they work. They really looked at the total picture of these agencies. It's not me against you because I want this. They really worked hard. They work hard from January to March, and then they're off, because they have to get it done in a short window. And I think you will be a great asset to that group and give them a different perspective. So I think President Wilshire came up with a great nomination to fill the empty spot from one of the citizens that, could not do it anymore. So that's great,
Thank you
So
so much.
you also, your nomination will come up later on in the committee, and you will be notified as to come in and get sworn in. Okay?
It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, we have Charlie Matthews.
Yeah. President Wilshire, you're doing Charlie, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we now have Hunt Legacy trustees, Charlie Matthews, new appointment. And President Wilshire will do the intros. Is Charlie here? Yeah, I see Charlie. Okay.
I'm right here.
Thank you.
Hi, Charlie.
Okay, President Wilshire, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I have the honor and privilege once again to introduce a phenomenal person. Now, I've known Charlie for maybe 10 years. He worked at the National Library for 10 years. He was in here before us quite a bit. Excuse me. He's a very interesting person. He's into library, art, music, excuse me. So I think he would be a great asset to this committee, this team. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Charlie,
Thank you.
would you like to speak as to why you'd like to sit on the Hunt and Legacy trustees?
Well, I was asked by Carol Lyman at the National Public Library if I thought I might be interested in this position. And I am a trustee of the Hunt Memorial Building at this point, so I do think I have a lot to contribute. I've had a lot of experience with the results of the Hunt Legacy Trust as it affects the box lunch and the concerts on the plaza of the library. And I know that they have a nice legacy of being able to present a diverse amount of musical interest primarily. And I know that the Hunt Legacy Trust also offers other opportunities to improve the cultural opportunities in the city. So I would be interested in participating in this committee, and I hope that I can get your approval.
Thank you, Charlie. Any questions from members of the committee? Alderman Lopez?
Nope.
Nothing?
He answered all the questions I would have had.
Oh, Charlie, it looks like you slide by. And I know if
All right.
Carol Imans came looking for you, then you'll be a good fit for this group. So
All
as
right.
the others, your nomination will come up later on in the meeting, and then you'll be notified as to when you can get sworn in. Thank
Very
you.
good.
And thank you
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you very
willingness.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sherry Dunnitz, are you here? Sherry, you're here?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to give us a little intro on the Conservation Commission, Brendan Martin.
Yes.
Okay.
And
is Brendan online? Oh, there he is. Okay,
Yes, he
thank you.
is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brendan came to my attention about 6 months ago through a Ward 3 constituent who happens to be his grandmother. When we were talking one day about the Conservation Commission, and she indicated that her grandson really enjoyed being outside, did a lot for the environment, and that was his passion. So Brendan and I got together and had a nice chat in an afternoon. He is a native of Nashua. He is a social studies teacher at Nashua South. What he brings to the Conservation Commission is great enthusiasm, an interest and a desire to learn, which is really important because there's so many aspects to conservation that we need people on the committee that want to continue to learn about how we continue to be good stewards for our environment and for the land that we steward in Nashua. And the other thing that's really critical here is that he's also very proactive, and he's also begun to work as an elite liaison between the Conservation Commission and students at Nashua High South, because we do want to build a better relationship between the Conservation Commission and what we do, and the schools in Nashua, and the students in Nashua, because it's extremely critical that we build more institutional knowledge and that we get more people to understand how important stewardship is. So with that, I give you Brendan Martin.
Okay, Brendan, you're up. Please give us a little background and why you would like to be on the Conservation Commission.
All right, so hello, thank you all for your time. So I've already started to try to bridge the gap between the Conservation Commission and Nashua High School South, and I've created a flyer and spoke with students in an AP environmental class that I think would be interested in preserving Nashua as a city for the future. And I had talked to them at the end of last week, and the teacher that teaches that class as well, as a result of Sherry finding me and my involvement so far through volunteering and attending meetings, has shown interest as well. And so I think if we can grow for the future in education and learning, protecting Nashua's conserved lands is important, something that I value. And on top of that, I also started the Nashua South bass fishing team this year, which has, it's a varsity sport now at Nashua South, and my goal is to educate people on fishing, preserving fish in our area, and I'm really excited to learn on this committee, and I'm excited for what the future holds. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? Nope. Alderwoman Kelly.
No question. I just wanted to say thank you. I was on the Conservation Commission the first 2 years of my term, and it's really great to see, someone young coming in and also wanting to bridge that gap, because stewardship is really important. And get excited to hear all kinds of fun, very specific, scientific kind of stuff that comes your way. It was a fun commission, so thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I guess I did want to comment that this candidate, like several of the other candidates before, have already been active on the committee and are advocating for it. I think that's a huge bonus for the city, because a lot of the things that we do, we need constituents, we need residents to be participating in them, for them to be valid, for them to be good, informed decision-making bodies. They do inform the Board of Aldermen on how to and the mayor at times, to set policies and make things that will affect our community. So it's good that we have representation, but it's also good that we have representatives that are already taking their roles as advocates, for good communication seriously.
Thank you. Alderman Clemens.
Pretty much ditto.
Okay.
Good job.
It's a good communicator.
Okay. Well, we thank you that you want to volunteer, and I agree with my colleagues. It's nice to see young people step up to the plate, because they are the future, and they have some great ideas, and the idea that you have a bass fishing program at the high school is fabulous. My husband hopefully will be watching and be going yay. So your nomination will come up later on in the committee, and then you'll be notified. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
your
Sherry.
time.
Thank you.
He's all about that.
Okay, is Dora Brown on?
No, but Sylvia is the.
Oh, it's Sylvia Stewart is speaking for
Oh, okay.
the Environment and Energy Committee.
Okay, so Sylvia, you're going to be talking about the Energy and Environment Committee members coming up for appointment, Adrian George and Michael Turcott. Are either one of them here? Please come to the chamber, the horseshoe. Yep,
Anywhere you want.
anywhere you want.
You could take 2 chairs if you want.
The mics are directional though. Make sure
So, is Michael on? Okay, so Sylvia, you will have to give us the intro for Adrian. Michael will have to be seen at another meeting because he's not in the chamber or on Zoom.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. You're
Thank
on.
you. I'm Sylvia Stewart, the Chair of the Environment and Energy Committee, and I am honored to present to you this evening Adrian George. I've known him for over 15 years because of his daughter Stephanie, who was a student of mine when I was a music teacher at New Searles. Adrian has been living in Nashua with his wife and daughter for about 25 years. He retired last year, but he had a very active career. He received his undergraduate and graduate degrees in physics from Drexel University in Pennsylvania, and then worked as an applied scientist for 35 years, most recently for BAE. I know through having looked through his very impressive resume that he has published many articles in his field. He has worked in numerous advocacy groups in areas such as healthcare, immigrant rights, ending homelessness, and the environment. He worked with many environmental groups to pass the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative and Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards. When I spoke with Adrian about about joining our committee, one thing in particular he was very interested in was community outreach, which is an area in which the committee wishes to focus more attention. So it comes at a very timely time that we have an opening and that Adrian is interested and would like to get involved with the committee. And with that, I invite him to share more about himself and his interest.
Thank you. Adrian, would you like to speak to the committee and tell us why you would like to be on the Energy and Environmental Group?
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here. As Sylvia said, I mean, all my life I've worked as an applied physicist, but it was always instilled in me growing up and my parents to also be involved in my community and instilled, the concept of, giving back. I retired a year ago, and I know that we have some very challenging issues ahead of us, not only as a city and a state, but also as a country. And I have worked on a number of programs in the national interest, that do relate to climate. I also learned a lot about engaging with the population because I've worked with advocacy groups. And so I feel very strongly that we're going to make progress towards, achieving energy independence, tapping into renewable energy. We have to engage our population. And I've done it before. I know how to do it, and I feel comfortable about doing it. And I look forward to representing the city of Nashua in these areas.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you, and thank you for stepping forward. This is the committee that I am the liaison to, and I'm also very passionate about renewable energy and what we do with the climate crisis that's on our hands. So I was just kind of interested in some of your thoughts or ideas, and especially, the outreach piece of it. What do you think that we could do in the next year that would be the most helpful?
I think because of the lack of movement up in Concord. I think we really have to build more of a grassroots movement that has to be multi-dimensional. We have to really engage people. I'm talking about, having presentations in the library, presentations in our ward meetings, even collaborating with the same committees in other cities in this state. And so I would be very much willing to really get out there and really pound the pavement, because that's really what needs to be done. Just talking to people, I think they kind of get it, but they still don't understand the issues. There's been a lot of misinformation. And I think, with my background in both technical and advocacy, I think I can really connect with a lot of people and explain the important issues in a way that they'll understand it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any, if you see any intersections between your work with and ending homelessness advocacy and energy, and the committee that you're looking at. Do you see areas that we can particularly be helpful to residents or maybe even organizations working in those areas?
Well, obviously, homelessness, it's a very important issue. First of all, with homelessness, people need a place to stay. We're talking about the connection with energy. Obviously, you're talking about, lodging, where are people going to stay? And the residences that they stay, do they have adequate heating? Do they have availability of other resources such as water? Being able to communicate, with their society, and to basically bring people out of isolation. One of the biggest problems with homelessness is that people don't have a permanent location. How are you supposed to receive mail? Where do you go if you want to get a job? Where's your address if people want to contact you? It's one of those situations. It's a spiraling down situation if you don't have a place to live.
Yes, Alderman Lopez.
So just for context, like Nashua Soup Kitchen, for example, transitioned to solar energy at the Quincy Street location, while concurrently are in the process of expanding their shelters over to Spring Street almost explicitly because the Ash and Kinsey Street shelters are not energy efficient, and a significant amount of resources goes into upkeeping just outdated facilities. And there are many other organizations in Nashua that would be in a similar situation. But then there's also programs like NeighborWorks, Habitat for Humanity, even public housing programs where they aren't generally the target of energy efficiency programs, and they may not have the front end investment capital to kind of invest in certain programs or have the same opportunities that other people have, that if you had that investment capital, maybe your monthly bills, I think everybody's looking at their Eversource bill right now with collective shock, might be a little bit more manageable, and that may be a retention measure. So I've been thinking maybe those were some areas too, that we could be exploring a little bit more effectively at the city. And I imagine you probably feel the same.
Well, I think there's two issues here. One are these programs, to try to provide energy to programs. But on a much larger scale, I remember last summer the mayor had sent out an email explaining, why he vetoed the contract for the firefighters. And one of the things they had mentioned was the increased cost of health care, energy, less money from the state. And this city has to be able to start saving money by being able to tap into its renewable energy sources. We have hydropower. We have two large high schools. We have a library where we could probably save, I'm just guessing, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And if people, and I think one way to communicate, with our residents is that they obviously don't like their taxes going up. And so I think being able to engage people and explain to them in a very simple and understandable way, the connection between energy and their property taxes, I think is something that would really tap into a lot of people's, that would really help, really get that awareness out there. But the only way, from my experience, from doing activism, is that you have to build up the movement one person at a time. You have to talk to people, And I'm not talking about Twitter or Facebook. I'm talking about actually going out and looking at people and engaging them. And that's one of the things that I see missing in a lot of our movements, is that we're just not engaging people.
Alderman Lopez.
I just want to thank you for stepping forward to be nominated. And if we are looking for a movement, that's going to need to start with one person. It seems like you're a great person to start it going. So thank you for stepping forward.
Alderman Clemens.
Yeah, my comments go back to something you said, which is, the state's not moving forward. I think you're being kind. The state, with the PUC decision to get rid of the energy efficiencies that was backed by almost all of the utility companies, and it's just a smart thing to do. We need people like you on a committee like that to go out and explain why decisions like that are short-sighted and don't help, in the long run. For example, the energy grid, so I'm excited to vote for your nomination, and I wish you success on the committee. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
President Wilshire.
Thank you. I agree with everything Alderman Clemens said. I think you're the right person to be on this committee, and I see that you've already done some community service and community involvement with like the dental connection, and so you've already given back some. So I'm very impressed that you're willing to give back to this committee, because it's a very important committee. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we appreciate your willingness to get involved and really step up to the plate in seeing the things that need to get done for the city to move forward. So your nomination will take place later on in the meeting, and I know that it will be unanimous. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, I was able to text Mr. Turcott during the meeting, and he didn't have a link, so I sent him the link, so he may be logging in a few minutes.
I don't see him, because we keep looking.
It was like he just sent back, okay, I'll try to log in.
Okay,
So.
all right, we'll watch for.
Breaking news.
Oh, breaking news. Okay, is William Quinn here and Matt Sullivan? Okay. Okay, Carter, okay, please come sit. And Carter, you can introduce William. Oh, you could have sat anywhere. Okay, so William Quinn is being nominated for the Historic District Commission. Carter, would you give us a brief intro?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Carter Falk. I am the Deputy Planning Manager in the Planning Department. I'm also the liaison to the Historic District and have been since 1998. A short time ago, Mr. Quinn submitted an application to the Historic District for some renovations at his house. The Historic District has about 200 properties, and he has probably one of the, if not the most prominent house in the district. It's the Elijah Shaw House, which is at 85. And I can tell in my conversations with Mr. Quinn that he understands the purpose and nature and the importance of the historic district. He understands the preservation of a very prominent piece of property in our city. And the plans that were submitted by him were incredible. The details, the amount of information we received, was above and beyond what we normally get for most applications in the district. And we were all very impressed, not only our staff, but the members of the commission as well. He will be a great steward to not only his house, but to other properties within the district. We firmly believe that, once hopefully he is on the committee, that he will be a great asset to the Historic District Commission. And I know as Alderman Cleave will, or Alderwoman Cleave, excuse me, would attest, sometimes we have issues with getting a full quorum on the committee. And so I would love to have Mr. Quinn on the commission for staff, as well as speaking on behalf of the HTC as well.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Quinn, tell us why you'd like to be on the Historic.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Board, and thank you, Carter. That was an intro that I don't know that I could live up to with this, but nonetheless, my wife Jennifer and I did apply for alterations consideration to the HDC early this year, and in going through the process, realized what a great function the commission has within its grasp. We have owned a number of older homes in older neighborhoods in other towns in the past, and I never had an HDC, a Historic District Commission, to govern what was happening. And what we found was that, obviously renovations and changes and so on are necessary and can go on, but at the same time, when you've got such a unique and valued architectural piece of history as we do here in town, up and down, throughout downtown and up and down Concord, that it seems like someone should be looking over it. And I think that for the future of the towns that are to grow and be of significance to the state and the size of Nashua obviously is, it helps to have that history be preserved and not be chipped away. Change can be done via development and lots of tear down and rebuild, but change can also be that chipping away. The slight little changes, the neglect or what might happen to some of these properties of significance that, really should be maintained for that preservation of history. My wife and I are not, looking to be exact in museum detail and what we're doing, but we do want to be honest, and we do want to represent and preserve what's out there. So the plans that we presented were not anywhere near as grand as I think maybe Carter presented, but nonetheless, we wanted to be honest, right? And we just wanted to make this look like a property that we took pride in, but also represented the history that's passed down. Because as we came to find that house and understand the history that everyone seemed to know about it, we felt that we had a responsibility as well. Maybe the last point I'll make is that as I've spoken to some of my neighbors on Concord, a conversation came up that I can't take credit for, but I fully buy into and embrace, and that is the idea that there are so many people that walk around downtown and look at the architecture and walk up Concord and look at the architecture, and there is a responsibility to maintain that and give back to them as they're walking up to Greeley, right? Or as they are, just going about their day, that there's something there to see, and it should be maintained and preserved. So I think that whether I sit on the HDC or not, my wife and I plan to do that, but I think if we could be of greater good and help and just look out for the city and what is to be, we would like to do that, and I would like to be the voice if that is the case.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, I just want to comment that I appreciate your not only your willingness to serve on the Historic District Commission, but your perspective in approaching it as a person discovering that, because I think that's very important when, throughout this night we've heard about cultural groups that may not have the same kind of access, or groups of people that may now call Nashua their home that don't necessarily have the same lineage that previous groups have had. This is their city too, and that history that is being preserved should be communicated to them too. And so when you talk about the aesthetics of, past building styles and architecture and that kind of stuff, it is important to remember that this is not just for now, it's for posterity, and ensuring that people who come to this community can feel that link with the people who've been in the community and have undergone a lot of challenges. I know personally I've worked a lot from the Cultural Connections Committee to now, worked a lot with the Richelieu Club and members of the Greek community as well. And in describing their stories and the struggles that they've done as they came to Nashua and established a cultural expression of their contributions to Nashua, even architecturally, they also express the struggles that they had, which are they're not alone in those struggles. A lot of people who are struggling with things today have very similar themes, very similar leaders in their community that come forward. And I think we need to recognize that today's leaders and today's newcomers are joining a long heritage of that in Nashua. So that was meant to say that too. I got lost.
Anyone else? No. No, Alderman Clemmons first and then Alderwoman Clee.
Okay, thank you. So, not to, well, I guess the most controversial thing you'll probably face on that committee is Greeley Park, because a few years ago, the Board of Aldermen, I believe, passed an ordinance that says that any changes or anything like that that are proposed in Greeley Park, your committee or this committee will have an advisory role on that. And so I guess my question to you is, how do you feel about development in Greeley Park?
Well, obviously, it has to be approached like any other idea of development. I believe that there has to be a balance of the needs of the community. There has to be a voice from the community. I don't buy into politics per se, but I do buy into common sense, and I do buy into the greater good. So I think that obviously, without an example specifically, I would say development for development's sake is not the case, but development for betterment is where we should go. And that betterment may be leave it alone, right? It may be, let's go ahead and let's say that the idea is to allow it to develop into more wild space and so on. Great. Then if that's for the betterment of all, and we all believe in that, let's move forward. But I don't think politics has a place in a park, right?
No, I appreciate that answer, actually, because that's the answer I was looking for, and I think that that's the right approach. Because oftentimes, in my opinion, Greeley Park is looked at, as a neighborhood park that's owned by the neighborhood. And really, Greeley Park, like any other park in the city, is owned by the entire city. And so I appreciate that approach, which to me is a common sense approach of what is the greater good for the entire community. And so I appreciate that. So thank you.
I'll maybe add one more point, is that in the house that we sit in and the home that we sit in, we watch the community, we watch the city walk by. And you do get a sense of what that park means to everyone, especially as you spend time there and like I said, see the people coming back and forth and back and forth. So I do understand and really hope to be able to help the cause of those, because I think it's important. The park situation is necessary. It's beloved, right? And I think that it has to be preserved for everyone, and it should not be a neighborhood situation alone.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to agree with what Carter had said, what Mr. Falk had said. It is very difficult sometimes to get a quorum, like many other committees, but even prior to COVID, for the Historic District, and to have Mr. Quinn willing to step up. And I agree with Carter. It is also one of the most magnificent homes in the area. I think all the homes in Ward 3 are beautiful, but that truly is a magnificent home, and it was very impressive, the detail that he gave. So he understands. I think he's a perfect person to be on this. I think he understands the necessary, I don't want to say so much upkeep, but just the necessary aspects of the quote-unquote historic district. And he stayed within limits and maintained it and so on, and gave us quite a bit of detail. I think he will also help others that are trying to go through that process. And being on the committee and being able to explain that when others come forward, I think is going to be quite an asset. So thank you very much for stepping up, and I look forward to him sitting on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Okay, anyone else? I appreciate your answers along with Alderman Clemens, because Greeley Park was my work home for over 25 years, and it could become difficult because some people felt that it was their park and not city park. But when you see the activities pre-COVID that took place there and the community coming together to participate and be part of that park that was left to us, I think that's a great way to look at any changes that will come along, because like anything, changes happen, but they have to be subtle and they have to fit with what we're looking for to make Greeley Park always better, just like Mine Falls Park. So thank you for your willingness to join this committee, and your nomination will take place later on in the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Park, for participating today.
Very welcome.
Okay, and so Michael Turcott is on Zoom, so we'll go back to her. Sylvie, I will have you give a little bio on Michael Turcott, who is being nominated for the Energy and Environmental Committee. Go ahead. Thank you for
Great.
joining us, Michael.
So I've had the pleasure of knowing Mike for a very short while. He was recommended as a candidate by Justin Cates, who's a former member of our committee, who was the sustainability director for the town. Mike has been working in Nashua for about 15 years. He received his degree in entrepreneurship from Southern New Hampshire University. He has worked all his life in the construction business. He founded his own business in 2009 called Turncycle Solutions. It's a construction company specializing in energy efficient construction. He has received multiple entrepreneurship awards, and let's see what else I have to say. I'm really pleased to meet him. We, and on the committee, have worked a lot on trying to lower our carbon footprint in Nashua through renewable energy. And now talking about actually the construction of our buildings and understanding how to make them more energy efficient so that we consume less energy in the first place, I think is great. So with that, I'll let Michael Turcott speak.
Okay, Michael, would you please give the committee a little update about yourself and why you want to join the Energy and Environmental Committee?
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I started this construction company specifically focusing initially on energy efficiency. I worked for the low-income housing sector in Belknap-Merrimack County, and through my work in saving and making homes more energy efficient and more comfortable and safe, I realized that I had an opportunity to grow into the private sector, became a subcontractor for the state of New Hampshire. We are a very active contractor in the New Hampshire Saves program in the state. Our program is currently shut down at the moment, but that's a topic for another day. But we do a vast majority, somewhere in the 70 percentile of New Hampshire Saves work. We employ roughly, I want to say 20 employees at the moment, right up of Otterson Street, and very recently just are in acquisition to purchase a building on East Otterson Street, where we will dig our roots even deeper into the Nashua community.
Okay. Comments, questions from the committee? Alderman Lopez.
Always with the comments. I have worked with Mike and Turncycle particularly as a provider. I know he's done renovations with some of the nonprofits that I've worked with. And I've known him as a landlord in our neighborhoods. And I've been impressed with the quality that his company does, but also the humanity, the attention to the needs of the people that he's working with. I think he's a great community member. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do on this committee. And I appreciate you stepping forward to get into this, because I know the construction field, you could spend all your time making money and, you know, doing all that, but you're putting time and effort into advising our community and advising our city. So thank you.
Very happy to do it. And as a caveat, I'm also a Rotary member and was the president of the Home Builders Association for Nashua, Manchester, Concord. So I look forward to growing in a role like this at a more political level.
Okay. Alderman Clegg.
Again, I'm sorry, I did not take my hand down.
I'm sorry, Alderman Clegg, I meant Alderman Kelly first. I want to take care of the our committee members first. Thank you.
We're good. I just also wanted to comment, I know Mike as well, and he attended our last meeting, very passionate about the work that he does, and, you know, the important work, not just going out and building these buildings, but talking about making sure everybody has a warm, safe home, and really, at the same time, helping with climate change. So we had a good conversation the last time. He brings a lot of passion and energy, and I know he'll be a great addition.
Okay. Anyone else from the committee? Okay, Alderwoman Clegg.
No, my hand was up by accident. I didn't lower it, so I apologize.
Okay, so, thank you. Okay, I guess, thank you for your willingness to participate in this committee, and your nomination will be taken up shortly. Thank you. And I do want to thank all the new appointees that are coming forward, because without your willingness to serve, these committees and commissions would certainly not survive, and we would not get the city to grow and do things a little bit different in the future. So thank you all. Okay, moving on. Application to license hawkers, peddlers, vendors.
There are none.
Okay. Appointments by the Board of Aldermen and Mayor.
I move to recommend the confirmation of the following appointments. Cultural Connections Committee, Wei Ling, for a term to expire September 30th, 2024. To the Citizens Advisory Commission. Oh, that's not right. I know, but that's not how it's written. That's okay. To the Cultural Connections Committee. To the Citizens Advisory Commission, Oscar Valessas, for a term to expire October 1st, 2022. To Hunt Legacy Trustees, Charlie Matthews, for a term to expire December 31st, 2023. To the Conservation Commission, Brendan Martin, for a term to expire November 30th, 2024. To the Energy and Environment Committee, Adrian George, for a term to expire October 31st, 2024. And Michael Turcott, for a term to expire November 30th, 2024. And to the Historic District Commission, William Quinn, for a term to expire November 30th, 2024.
Okay, you heard the motion. Do you have any questions, comments? Alderwoman Wilshire?
Thank you. I don't really have any questions, but I just want to thank the mayor and, you know, the others who recruited this wonderful group of volunteers to step forward. I really appreciate it. So thank you all for your willingness to serve the city.
Okay, thank you. You heard the motion. All in favor of the nominations being approved? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Okay, unfinished business?
There's none.
Okay. New business resolutions?
There are none.
Okay. New business ordinances.
We have before us 021-077, updating the Administrative Services Division and Personnel Ordinances.
Okay.
I'll make a
Director,
motion.
oh,
You want me to
go
make a
ahead.
motion
Yes,
to recommend
please.
final passage so
Yep.
we can open comments?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And we have Director Kleiner. Anyone else that you need to come up? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll do one for the record, please. Thank you.
Yes, please. Director Kleiner.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So it's been a while, since May of 2019, when the board reinstated the Administrative Services Division. We knew at that time that the division would grow, would expand, would change, and it has done so. I am very fortunate to work with some of the most amazing managers and dedicated staff in the city, and this division has taken off running. And with that, we've had a couple changes, most recently due to budget, with the leaving of the Director of IT and the Director of Human Resources. That in itself created some other changes and modifications that needed to be made. So working with the managers within the division, working with the staff, we've put together a very comprehensive and a plan that works for us as a division and as a team. This management team is just that. We discuss all of our changes, all of our policies, all of our procedures. We reach out to other directors. We reach out to other managers within the city. It's our job to not only serve our citizens, but to also serve our city divisions and to offer the best data and policies and best practices we can to the administration for his consideration. And I think that they do this very well. I can say that I honestly look forward to coming into work every day and working with this group of people. So there's a few changes. In the first page of the document that I'm giving you really just breaks them out of the ordinance, which if you're looking at the legislation can be a little daunting. And I'll start with Chapter 5, Part 2. So in the past, you had the Director of IT who worked with your legislative manager to choose the electronic medium that served the board for sharing information and legislation. What we would like to do is appoint a Chief Information Officer. This would be out of the IT existing staff, someone I believe you're all well aware of, Mr. Miservich, who fits this bill. He knows our infrastructure inside and out. Nick has been phenomenal and has really stepped up with the leading of Director Cottington. So that's the change. Mr. Miservich's position would no longer be Deputy Director of IT, as there is no Director of IT. He would become the Chief Information Officer for the City of Nashville. Chapter 5, Part 3 is changing the duties and the maintenance of the city's self-insurance programs from the Director of Human Resources to the Director of Administrative Services. I have to say with this change, there's a little bit, you always have to be careful to have some oversight. Our benefits manager and our human resources managers to some extent, and our risk manager to some extent, we all look at the benefits program, but you can't have the benefits manager actually having the final oversight of the fund. So that's what that change will do. Also, the human resources division itself, there's no human resources director any longer. I understand there was some tendency for some concern. It's a large department, But what we're looking at going forward is you have 3 very capable, very dedicated managers. We would take that division and have the Human Resources Department, the Benefits Department, and the Payroll Department. These managers all have extensive expertise in their individual areas. So I think you know Nancy Trask, who's Human Resources Manager. The Benefits Manager is an open position, which we are conducting interviews for next week. And WBS, our consultant, will be participating in those interviews. And then you have Peter Donovan, who is the Payroll Manager, and who has been with the city for a few years now. So the legislation before you actually, for the first time, calls out the appointment of those individual managers, which is important because they are their own area of expertise. It's very rare, either public or private, to get a human resources manager that really has the level of payroll experience that you need in a business world today. It would also bring back the chief assessor, because actually in the ordinances now, the chief assessor was eliminated when administrative services was brought back, and the city is fortunate to have Rick Vincent, who is in this role, and I am very happy to report to you this evening, we have an assessing department at full staff. So Mr. Vincent has done a phenomenal job, including a new assessor who is all the way from Wyoming, and was a chief out in Wyoming. So bringing back that role is very important. And then, of course, the Chief Information Officer that I spoke about earlier will assist with the overseeing of the Information Technology Department. In that department, you have 2 other managers, Jason Toohey and Dan McMullen. Mr. Toohey is responsible for product development and the implementation of new programs, and Mr. McMullen is responsible for the help desk and the technology services that keep the city systems running. Then you would have the Chapter 5, Part 4, the Human Resource Manager would join the Joint Employee and Administration Advisory Committee, and the Chief Information Officer will join the Cable Television Advisory Board, which actually Mr. Miservich sits on now. Moving right along, Chapter 50, Article 3. This would just replace the Director of Administrative Service, Human Resources, which no longer exists, with the Director of Administrative Services, working with the mayor to institute personnel changes. And then finally, the last change is Chapter 50, and this is the self-insurance funds. And what we are asking the committee to consider is changing the amount that the risk manager has before the risk manager brings forth a settlement to you from $15,000 to $25,000. Now, we're going to get into later on this evening the purchasing changes and some of the other changes that we're making. This is important because we'd like to keep things level, right? So most of your finance committee and your purchasing changes are at 25. We'd like to keep this at 25 as well. It has not been changed in decades. 15,000 really is not enough for the risk manager to negotiate any real settlements. It gives her some assistance in buying power. And really, as you've seen, we don't have that many that come forward. The city is fortunate. We have a risk department that does an extremely good job. The other information so those are the major changes. The other information that I supplied is really backup information for the board to have. We've done really some amazing things. And all of these initiatives that we've taken on have been a collaboration of all of these departments. We work extremely well. We're lucky that we have the other directors and the staff within the city who step forward to tell us what they need to do their jobs. And we try to fulfill that and make changes when possible. The last document, we didn't know if you had seen, but this is our new quarterly newsletter, and we're quite proud of it. We have a gentleman named Rich Barabee up in IT, who, working with Megan Karen, the director of the Arlington Street Community Center, put this together. We have our second issue coming out later this month. Like I said earlier, part of our job is to help and assist our staff. And we had a sense that staff may not be feeling really connected within the city since we all work at various locations. We make sure this gets out to everyone. We're creating new programs like Shatterproof, an addiction resource, and Savory, Health Living, which is a nutrition program. We've created a whole employee resource on an employee portal where employees can reach out, take different trainings. They can have online technology classes. One of the best things about the city of Nashua is its people. And we want to make sure that they're well supported.
Do we have any questions from our committee members? Okay. President Wilshire.
Thank you. I agree with you, Director Kleiner, about the HR, being specialized managers. You have someone that does payroll that doesn't, necessarily know how the benefits work or, so I think that's a really smart idea. So how many people are there in the department?
That's, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. So that's one of the reasons I provided this. I thought it would be a question that the board may have, members of the committee may have. So these are all the managers, and the number over to the right is the number of direct reports that they have. So Human Resources, Nancy Trask has 2 direct reports, and they do a phenomenal job for 3 people, filling all the open positions within the city. So they handle the recruiting. Ms. Trask also has helped immensely as we start to review our HR policies. And we sit and we discuss them. And depending on the policy, we pull in other managers within the division as well.
I happen to know Ms. Trask from my HR group or whatever. She's wonderful. So I was happy to see when the city brought her on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Lopez.
I'm curious, just because it came up a number of times, about the position of Chief Information Officer. Like the title sounds Orwellian. I'm assuming there's no military rank. So how does that title come up with, and what is the difference between an officer, a manager, a specialist? Like, what is that person's role exactly?
Good. Try to clear.
So, the IT department itself, before Mr. Mizovich became deputy director, had 4 managers essentially. And Mr. Mizovich was promoted to deputy director because of his expertise with the infrastructure of the city, right? So all the security, the very complex infrastructures, the servers, that's all the work of Mr. Mizovich and his team. And some may know Rick Pearl, who has been instrumental. He's our Lawson expert. He's one of the people that sits on Mr. Mizovich's team. The reason we decided to carve out and make Mr. Mizovich Chief Information Officer is you need that one person within the city who is going to be responsible should we happen to have a problem, we have a breach, they relate it to the city, they become now kind of the emergency management officer of IT type person. They work with the state, they work with the feds, they would work with the police to minimize and handle and mitigate that breach. And we hope that we never have one. And I can tell you with Mr. Mizovich, he would do everything in his power to make sure that doesn't happen either. He has that technical expertise that is important for any city system. So it is an interesting title. He'll continue to work with his team and develop that team as much as possible, but he's that frontward-facing person who ultimately has control of the city systems.
Alderman Lopez.
So he is both a chief and an officer, but he is not like, we're attaching him to CTAB. This isn't about like launching propaganda or anything. He's the chief information technology officer, and he makes a lot of sense to be in those positions because he has insight of how our information technology processes are working and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted that clarification because it looked a little unusual.
Alderwoman Kelly.
My first question was actually about the CIO as well. Is the plan to just keep it that way and never have a director again of IT?
Yes, we found that with Mr. Mizovich at the moment, working with the chief information officer, and also bringing in Mr. Toohey and Mr. McMullen, who both have specialized areas. We work as a team. They work as a team, and then quite often I'm brought in. I work with them on budgeting and things of that sort, which may not have been the strong point. Their expertise is information technology. So I think right now, honestly, it's working, and it's working very well. And they are empowered, and they have stepped forward and made contributions that, quite honest, I hadn't seen before. But again, they're working with human resources and risk and purchasing. It's really more, we try to look at the division as more than just the individual departments. It's a management team.
Yes, Donna.
Well, it's not really a follow-up with the second question, but I'm going to ask it. So my other question, I think we've talked a lot about this the last couple of years in terms of the self-insurance program. So I'm just interested in, the decision to pull it out from under human resources and bring it under you, and what kind of changes you might see happening with that, because we know that's a huge budget thing. We've talked about it a lot.
Great question. So I think when you say bring it out of human resources and under me, it was under the control of the human resources director. And Mr. Boudreau and I worked very close together on the insurance redesign. Of course, whenever you're working with benefit programs, your benefits manager has to be involved, your human resources manager to some extent. And then you're also dealing with not only the mayor, but the board ultimately at some level. What I do have some experience in is benefit systems. So I worked both for a short while training at Fidelity and also at Standex International for the director of human resources there. And I think the benefits manager and I, both Carol St. Pierre and I'm sure whoever we choose to replace her, would work very closely together, again, with our consultant, WBS, because they are phenomenal and we wouldn't make any changes unless they were on board. And then ultimately it would be the decision of the mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Director Kleiner. So you've heard the motion on O-210077. Alderman Clemmons.
I did want to just say thank you to Director Kleiner for giving us the overview of the changes, and kudos on your leadership in the department and in the city. I think you do an excellent job, and I wanted that on the record.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So you've heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Before us, we have O-21-079, revisions to ordinances regarding grievance procedures for persons with disabilities. We recommend final passage.
Alderman Kelly is recommending final passage for O-21-079, and we have Mr. Shanes from Risk Management, who is going to give us a little spiel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Jennifer Duchesne, Risk Management. So the proposed legislation updates statutory references and amends the complaint procedures for persons with disabilities. For some time now, Risk Management has been the general catch-all for complaints and guidance requests versus community services, which is reflected in the current ordinance. The proposed revision provides corrected direction of that. The proposed also references our grievance form, which is not in the current language. The revision updates language throughout, as you will notice. But most importantly, it updates timeframes so that they coincide with the Department of Justice's newest regulations. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, do you have any big changes within that?
I mean, those are pretty much the big changes, that it changes it from community services to risk management. You'll see timeframes throughout changed, and that's just to bring us up to date with the Department of Justice's newest regulations. But other than that, and we have a grievance form now that we've added.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Is this in, I guess, is this are these grievance procedures for employees, for citizens, for both?
It's for both.
Okay, so basically it's just what it is it's up, just so I'm understanding it, it's updating the grievance procedure if there is an ADA violation or someone thinks there's an ADA violation. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. And I assume that the school department is not under this, they have their own.
Correct. This is a
city.
catch-all. So, I mean, we're kind of the catch-all for the whole city. People do come to us, but other departments and divisions have their own, such as the transit department, because they follow a different, regulation. The school department, although they do call us and we do give them guidance.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, so it looks like you're upgrading based on new laws and regulations that you should be following and putting it where it should be, so.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Shames. Okay, so you heard the motion on 0-21079. Any comments? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. So next one is O-21080, updating the purchasing ordinances. Madam Clerk?
Yes, I would like to recommend final passage.
Okay, and we have Ms. Parkinson and Director Kleiner to speak on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, she needs an.
I need the second one, I need it for the record, please, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Director Kleiner, do you want to start and then?
Yes, thank you. So shortly after the Administrative Services Division was reinstated, I sat and I met with the division directors, and that being Director Photo, Director Cummings, and Director Marchand at the time. And I wanted to get a feel of where they thought some of their greatest concerns were. And this was one of the areas. So we have a system of controls in place which have worked very well for the city. Unfortunately, sometimes those controls can also get to a point where they hinder the work of your division. So we've sat, Ms. Parkinson and I, with various staff, with the directors, with CFO Griffin, to really work through what we consider tolerable changes that create more efficiency within the city. It's interesting, the purchasing, so Ms. Parkinson joined us right during COVID, which is a great time to come into the into the city where there's no one here. And she kind of got put into the role and had to learn and struggle somewhat on her own. And we're very glad she did so. But one of the things that we told her is that we needed a review and a revision of the purchasing manual. And she's worked very hard on that. I think these changes are just enough to create some efficiency, give the division some area to work with, to make those purchases easier, but we are not changing our fiscal responsibility or oversight in any way. And I will pass it off to Ms. Parkinson to walk you through the changes.
Okay, Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. The first change, a lot of the changes that I am proposing are just cleanup changes and kind of bringing us to best practices in businesses and addressing kind of where we are today versus probably where the ordinance started. And this first one is that it's the vendor catalog file. It defines that there has to be an actual file of catalogs in the purchasing office, and there isn't one, and it isn't practical to have one in the world of Google. So my proposal is that we remove that requirement. The next change under 576 is to add the divisional director to the responsible parties for the adequate inquiry, because the reality is they're doing it at the divisional level. They're going out and giving quotes, and that's work that they're doing today. So it's more of a shared responsibility than just falling into the purchasing manager. The next proposed change is for 577, under 577. It's to correct the threshold to 25,000 at the top. That aligns with the next change. But also, I wanted to add a minimum of 3 quotes under adequate number of suppliers. Wanted to define it a little bit more. 3 is pretty much best practices in purchasing. And adequate is a little gray, I think, because, and I put in the where feasible, because there are some times where 3 isn't feasible. But at least it gives a little bit of direction on what we would consider adequate. The next change under 578, it increases the threshold for competitive bidding to 25,000 from 10,000. That aligns with that 25,000 that is a requirement to come to Finance Committee. And I also did take a look at several municipalities around, and they range from 10 to 50. We're right kind of in the middle with most others. There's only 2 that were at 10. Everybody else was 20 and above. So kind of brings us kind of where other folks are as well. The estimated impact is pretty minimal. It's on a 3-year average, that threshold between 10,000 and 25,000 is 102 per year. But it's an inflated number, because a lot of those 102 you would never competitive bid out. The things like software agreements and things where vehicles where folks are using other municipal agreements, so they wouldn't be subject to competitive bidding anyway. So that's the numbers of it. The next proposed change is the requirement to publish bids in hard newspapers. Now this obviously would, if it's a state or a federal requirement, we'd still publish it in the newspaper. But what we would propose is that we leave it open to online publications. Sometimes an online publication gets broader reach. And there are also specialty websites that just contractors go to look for opportunities. Outside of Bid Express, but others that they're just looking for contracting projects and what's going on in the contracting world. So the proposal is to allow those where applicable instead of the Telegraph or the Union Leader. The next proposed change would be to add virtual bid openings as an option for a public opening. What we found during COVID was that it was more efficient and more people had the opportunity to participate in a virtual bid opening than actually coming into the office to do that. They could still come into the office, we'd have it on Zoom, we could still come in, but that would suffice. The next proposed change would be including the language that we would not allow debarred vendors from federal or state programs to participate in a Nashua bid. That's pretty standard. You don't want somebody that has been debarred federally or on the state level to be doing business with us either. The next change on 584 would be to add some language to allow, right now, the sole source procurement is pretty restrictive language in the ordinance. There are things like, for instance, software maintenance, where there may be, or phone maintenance, Cisco, that's a better one. There may be a number of companies that offer phone maintenance, but the reality is the person that we bought the phone from is the one that we want to get the maintenance from. So I put some language around technology, and if there's specific technology, another really good example is the Motorola radios that we use. A lot of people sell Motorola radios, but because the technology is special to what we already have, we want to make sure that it's not required to go out to bid, or we're not required to go to another vendor for that technology. The next change is, I put some language in there around the no ink, if it doesn't go out, if a contract is less than 10%, it's not required to go out to bid. I did put some language in there that just speaks to if the market has changed. If the market has significantly dropped, we should still go out to bid even if it's under 10. The next change is 591. Amendments to contracts. Okay, so this one is, as the ordinance reads now, pretty much any change to a contract at all would need to come back to finance as a communication if it's under 25, and as a request for approval if it's over 25. So when I first came, one of the first change orders that came to me for approval was Transit had a van that they were saving $100 on. And we had to write a memo and send it back through Finance Committee because they saved $100. And I'm like, why are we all spending time writing memos on these kinds of things? So what we're proposing is that if it's a significant change in scope, or if it's over that $25,000, or if the project is delayed for more than a year, which would be significant, that it would go back through finance. But other than that, it would not. And the last change that we're proposing is contracts that we'd like the divisionals to have the ability to sign contracts, moving that threshold from 1,000 to 10,000. And we don't really have a good way to benchmark the impact on that as far as volume and efficiency goes, because we don't track that currently. But we're told by the divisionals that it would help them. So that we're including that in our request.
Thanks. That's it? Okay, thank you. Any questions or concerns? Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, with regards to the switching over to a more virtual format, and even the changing the catalog so you can do online searching a little bit more effectively, those seem like just ways of modernizing our approach and probably likely to generate more efficiencies. Yes. I do worry a little bit about the catalog. At least you have a limited set number of places you can order from, and so that means that those places are hypothetically vetted. Is there a mechanism for keeping track of vendors that we do business with, that are approved, that we've actually kind of evaluated?
Yes, there are two, actually. We can pull vendor lists out of Lawson as to who we've paid and kind of what we're doing business. But also, since I've started, I have started a process for a vendor application for vendors that want to do business with a city that we don't currently. It's a one-page form. They send it in. I put it in an Excel spreadsheet. And we've been creating, I
there wasn't a really good basis of information when I came. I don't know what happened or where, but it wasn't there. So I kind of just started from scratch with an Excel spreadsheet, and as we've been putting out bids, and now we've been getting bids back in, and vendor information has been coming, we've just been adding it to the spreadsheet. So we'll kind of continue to do that until we get a better way of doing it.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I know you can, like, somebody well-intentioned on, you know, in a department trying to get like electronic equipment online or something, could end up getting something that is like open to hacking or any number of things that we, like, if we at least have a name and an address and somebody to blame if something goes wrong, that's a good thing. And then with regards, and I guess Director Kleiner might be able to answer this because she was present for the meeting, and I'm just taking the shot on behalf of people who are really interested in it, but where we're tracking the contracts, is this an appropriate place to put that we will keep a list of those contracts and when those contracts expire? Per Alderman Liu's request.
Yes, so Ms. Parkinson has been creating that list. It's a chore. It is a manual chore, and you know, I think that we can continue to do so. Do you really want to place that list in an ordinance? It's up to the board. You know, I think we have continued to work well and find solutions with anybody who needs information. I think that Ms. Parkinson and her staff is doing a great job now in putting together vendor lists, and the Administrative Services Division itself now, we are starting to look as we move into our second year of budgeting, which just happens to be my background, on how we get more information on contracts and how we start to look forward and really start to negotiate contracts better. It's just something that I think will naturally develop, and we'll have better processes and better information. But right now, for what we have is Ms. Parkinson's manual list.
Alderman Lopez.
So just to respond to that, it was mentioned that some information was a little bit hard to find when Ms. Parkinson came on board. So not with respect to how the present administration is doing record keeping, but maybe how future ones, it may be something to look at in codifying however those particular contracts are kept, because it is a chore for her now because other administrations didn't do it before. But I also think that putting it into an ordinance is essentially an expression of distrust of the professionals who are doing it, and a mandate to spend your time doing that. And I'm happy with how the administration is doing its releases of information, and it's providing the information that the people need. And I think that any elected official who's seeking that kind of information just needs to maintain a reasonably collegial relationship with the city staff, and they'll point them right at what they're looking for. So I was just asking for the purposes of understanding, and if, I think, to Director Kleiner's credit, if she felt it was necessary to do it, then she could always propose to us that we do it.
Anyone else?
Oh, me. Okay. You just don't ever see me.
I never see you.
I'm not sure what I should do.
It's the hat.
Alderman Kelly.
Get like a selfie stick with a thumb on it.
Wilshire. I'm just look to my right.
It's fine.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I have a couple comments and a couple questions. So first comment was I really appreciated the chart that you put in here, which I know will go on the record, just showing us where the different thresholds are for the different cities. I thought that was really helpful to see, and also the percentage of contracts we're talking about that wouldn't come before us. Obviously, we don't want to make more administration for you guys. You've got a lot on your plate. I had a couple questions. So question one, you talked about the debarment thing, which seems to make sense. I wondered who that would fall on to check.
I'm sorry, can you ask again?
Sure, so
Oh.
under F, I think you put this piece about like making sure that no vendor that we work with is debarred.
Debarment.
Yeah, so how do we check, is it you that checks it? or-
There's a website that we can check on, and it would be it would be purchasing's responsibility to go in and check, I think it's called SAM, to go in to check and make sure that that vendor is a good and valid vendor. And, you know, there is an ordinance that, no, it's a standard that we hold when we're doing bidding, that vendors do have to be responsible and responsive. So we already kind of, we're edging up to that. This just formalizes that there is a place that we have to go and we have to check.
Okay. Do you think the language is clear enough about whose responsibility that it is? You're comfortable with the way it's written? I actually don't have it in front of me, so I was just wondering.
Yes.
I'll put it up here. It's so many pages.
I think it is, as in all of the ordinances would necessarily fall under purchasing. I think all of the managers and then the directors know that that would be a responsibility of purchasing. But again, you know, we have to, as in any of our purchases, it is ultimately Ms. Parkinson's responsibility, and then that of the finance committee, to make sure that division directors and staff have followed proper procedures in the purchasing of our goods.
Okay.
So, and I think that's something that I know Mayor Dontrous thought with the finance committee this year around, he'd speak to more of that at the beginning of the year. And that really is the finance committee's role, is to make sure that we have followed proper procedures, and Ms. Parkinson's done her job in a way, not necessarily what we've purchased, you know. I mean, I think that when you're looking at a director like Director Photo and her staff probably know if it's better if it's dump truck A or dump truck B. But did we purchase those dump trucks under the policies and the procedures and the ordinances? So at first step, it starts with Ms. Parkinson. After that, believe it or not, each purchase that has a contract or goes to finance committee goes through CFO Griffin and myself, and then ultimately finance.
Great. Alderman Kelly. Thank you. So the recommendation under 591 contracts, you know, increasing that to 25,000, it seems like it makes sense, you know, given the changes that you made. My question is that 25,000 the entire project or each change order?
It would be per change order.
So conceivably, someone could put in $24,000 7 times and we'd never see it.
That's what's happening now.
Yeah. Now we're talking about more money.
I'm not sure if it's an ordinance or if it's in the manual, if it's in the policy, but I think it's in the ordinance. They're not to be splitting up projects or pieces of projects to avoid going to finance.
Mhm.
So the thing that's tough about that is you can have a $10,000 change order today, and tomorrow something else comes, and you don't know that it's going to kick it over until you've kicked it over. I think that is a definite challenge in general with change orders. The other part of change orders that's happening now is they can't hold up a change order to take it to finance. So it's always after the fact. They're asking for permission after the fact because they can't stop a project and wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is to get it to finance.
No, I understand the realities of it. I mean, I've done projects in it. I'll let you talk in the line. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
I think my colleagues, would probably be upset with me for not bringing this forward. We've discussed this at length, the other directors and I. You know, truth be told, you have a project like the public health building or like the renovation of this building. Do you really want me to stop construction for a change order that we can do nothing about? Materials have changed or something has changed, and stop construction and halt it for 3 or 4 weeks to get to finance and get approval. And now most likely that material is gonna cost you more money because the price just went up in the time that we were waiting. It's difficult. This ordinance probably causes some of the most grief when you're talking the big projects that we handle, right? When it's the smaller projects, not so much so. And I think we always intend to bring forth every bit of information that we can, but there are times, and I think, you know, you're gonna see it at Transit Center, or you're gonna see it whether it's, you know, the new DPW building, big projects like that. I think we have to take into account that time is money, big money. And sometimes there's some changes to materials or things like that that just have to be informed because we have to keep the project moving.
So I'm gonna reply, if that's okay?
Is one another question?
I do have
Alderman
another
Keller?
question, yes.
Okay.
So I hear that, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and we want to be thoughtful with, you know, buying things that might be going up. We don't want to stop a project in the middle of it, but I think my question's really based in how do we, as aldermen, as people of the finance committee, I know we're in personnel right now, but how do we have insight into, there's this project that happened 2 years ago, and this is a change order, how many change orders have been on it? I feel like that piece of it is harder to follow sometimes with the bigger projects. I'm not saying, and I'm just sort of interested in how we might bring some better transparency to that.
Do you mean with multiple change orders?
Yeah.
What I've been trying to do, and I'm chasing my tail a little bit just because I'm, you know, looking back in files, looking for, especially on the 2- and 3-year-old projects. But on the finance memos, I have been trying to put, you know, change order 1 was this much, change order 2 was this, and give you a kind of running tally of where that project started and where it is now.
Yeah. Is that something we could potentially bring onto our agendas? That might be interesting just to be able to see it right there too. I know you put it in your memo, but it's just something that's been on my mind as we've worked through some of these bigger projects.
All set, Alderman Kelly?
I am for now.
Okay. President Wilshire?
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with Alderman Lopez about the additional work on something that an alderman was requesting for contracts. I mean, if it's that much more work, I think I would leave it to your discretion whether or not it's necessary. On contracts, the last paragraph, all contracts must be signed on behalf of the city by the mayor. Contracts under 1,000, which is going to 10,000, may be signed on behalf of the city by employees in the following positions. That I have a little bit of problem with. It seems like a big jump. And Ms. Parkinson did say she didn't have anything to benchmark that. So I was kind of curious how that decision was made to go from 1,000 to 10,000 without any benchmarking.
Just move a 0 over?
So certainly, the decision was made because now you have a situation, and we're working on this. right? So we're working on automating our contract administration and having contracts move through the city electronically. But we don't have that right now. And honestly, whenever you have a contract, these are 10 and they're underneath what would have gone to finance. But again, they've been seen by me, they've been seen by the CFO. The mayor would know a purchase that a division is making, and these are in the division's budget. So by nature of the board approving their budget, these are small ticket items to the city. When you're looking at DPW, $10,000 is not much when in the purchases that they are making. I think, the mayor, and I and CFO Griffin were comfortable with it because we do have that level of communication. And when you have a contract signed, there's a purchase order that's cut and it's going through the purchasing. So many eyes are touching it. It's not like a division director would just sign $10,000 and no one would know. The administration would know about those purchases.
It's still going through legal and risk as well. So those two departments are also still reviewing the contract.
Okay, and so this would be division directors?
So only division
Only
directors.
division directors.
Only division directors would be
Okay.
able to sign.
All right, thank you. Alderman Clemmons?
On the same point, wasn't that the case before? Wasn't that the case that we're going back to what used to be? Because I remember, I could be wrong, but I remember a very big controversy over a $9,900 contract that was signed by a division director. And the current mayor got elected to the Board of Aldermen, and that changed, from what I can remember. I don't know if anybody here remembers that, but I think this is just going back to the practice that we had in place before, which I actually agree with. So I don't have a problem with this because I think it makes sense. But yeah, I think I can remember when this was changed, and it was, I want to say around 2012, 2013.
The before time.
Yeah. But in any case, I also had another question, though, if I could. Madam Chair.
Alderman Clemmons.
I'm a little leery about the competitive bidding change. And I'm leery about it because I know that a lot of equipment, heavy equipment, things like that, I guess tend to be more than 25,000 anyway, but sometimes that stuff does fall under the 25,000. And so I'm wondering, if there's a vehicle or if there's something like that, are we still going to do a competitive bid, for example?
Vehicles, and I've been here very long, but we have always used another municipality's pricing agreement. So there's been no bid, actually, no, we did parking trucks, but we didn't get any bids back.
Okay.
The other piece of this is, even if they don't go out for, even if it's not required to go out for competitive bid, they still can, and I can still say, you know what, I think we might want to do that on this. I think that makes sense for this. And also, they would also still be required to submit 3 written bids. So they'd have to go out and get quotes of some sort.
Oh, okay, so we're not getting rid of the Okay, so the quote part of that remains then?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. I'm comfortable with that.
Anyone else? Did a lot of work to get this done, and it's well-written. I agree with some of the comments that were made, but I remember when the prices were very low, you had to come to finance for, $1,000, and, so times have changed, and we have to understand that there are some other costs, and I like the idea that a division director can sign for $10,000, but you have other people who are in that process before they can approve that purchase. So I think that's a good way to go. So I thank you. If there's no other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it. Okay, so the motion was made for final passage concerning 0-21-480, updating the purchasing ordinances. Do we have any comments, questions, concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, looks like we have no public comment. General discussion? Alderman Clemmons.
So I know we're at the end of the year, and it's more than the end of the year, we're at the end of the session, and we have a couple of items in here that are tabled. Have you heard any communication on any of these, Madam Chair, as to whether or not?
None.
None, okay. So I guess my preference on these would be to just let them die in the committee, rather than move it forward and go through the process of indefinite postponement and what have you, so okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Remarks by the alderman? I will say it's freezing in here. No, Alderman Lopez.
I've had a constituent who has come to the chamber for the last couple of weeks to raise awareness of the contributions of Doris Miller. So I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow is the 80th anniversary of a day that will live in infamy. Doris Miller is an African-American cook who was serving on a ship that was under attack. He grabbed a machine gun, I believe it is, a mounted gun, and defended his ship. So he has been honored in a very unique and singular way. And as it is the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, we should be mindful of that and those who are observing that.
Thank you. No non-public? Hancock? No? None? Okay, Alderman Lopez.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Alderman Lopez to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 9:37 PM. Thank you, everyone. And